And yes, for once again, it is Friday night. I am Eno M Koney. Welcome to the E-Chapel, brother and sister, and those who do not like to be pigeonholed. Each and every one of you, a freak, a geek, or some other kind of thing that is totally unique. It is the Discordian service for the 28th of Milch in the season of Discord in the year of Our Lady 2025. And I'm going to be speeding through this. There's no 23 tonight because I'm not even sure we're going to make it to 23 minutes of the service because I have a head cold. But housekeeping first. No, not house. Yes, housekeeping first. Let's. Why does that? I checked that. It's done. There we go. Cool. Right. Let's go. Disclaimer. I've handily highlighted the words I'm interested in reading from the disclaimer tonight. So here we go. Here in entertainment leaps home is our intellectual probably way. So there we go. That's all I wanted to say from the disclaimer. Great. Order of service. We've got all the stuff. Deep Thoughts, Kandar, Faces of Eris, Reflective Tarot, Weekly Sacrament. The Weekly Sacrament, of course, is non-negotiable. We have to have that in the Friday service. But as I said, there is some housekeeping to go through first, which is that next week I will not be here at 7 p.m. I will be here at some time in the morning, and for a truncated service, with the focus being on the sacrament, due to the fact that I'm clocking up the half century next weekend. So I'm going away, so I won't be here to do this on Friday evening. So there we go. That's been. I have to make sure now that this service goes out on the YouTubes in time for people to know. Not obviously because there's not people rushing in to know that they shouldn't be here at 7 p.m. on a Friday from YouTube's, but just so that in case you were thinking that was going to be your first time, wrong. So let's get on with it. Deep Thoughts. This week, a quote from the venerable, indeed very venerable, dead, Robert Anton Wilson. Reality is what you can get away with, which is a quote from him, sort of. He wrote it. It was the title of a screenplay that he wrote. But it seemed to sort of capture the mood this week. I'm getting the vibe that we're not going to have the usual chorus of tangential nonsense from the peanut gallery, the congregation, which is very sad in one way, but in another way it allows me to have my head cold and to get the hell on with it. So we're not going to be too sad. But reality is what you can get away with. I think that I've been coming across a lot of thought recently that we should fundamentally, as Discordians, reckon with the idea that we, as Robert Anton Wilson, old Bob, said, live in a reality tunnel. We construct our own reality tunnel, which you don't need the word tunnel. We construct our own reality to a certain extent. We do have to take into account things that we can't control being thrust into our reality, such as the real possibility of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of disabled people being stripped of their protection by our government in the UK here, or worse things happening in other places. We can't control that, so it's part of our reality tunnel. It's part of the consensus reality bubble. But the one thing that I notice when you get an internet trend or a hot button topic like that is that people settle very quickly into interpreting. I like interpreting better. I don't care that it's not a word. We're going to use it. Interpreting the event through a few different lenses that, limits the possibility of what we can consider. As a famous sociopath once didn't say, because it was a line from a script by Quentin Tarantino. So maybe it's a famous sociopath. No, I'm not saying that. You ask why, I ask why not. And that's exactly the point. People are very hard line on interpreting the actions of a politician through the lens of it being a politically motivated action. But I think that's really one of the that's a weak way of looking at these things. Yeah, a person is a person, and so everything they do at some level is a personal choice. Yeah, and in fact, if a politician was shamed not for making a political choice, but for making a personal choice, because the politician will say in their defence, this was not a personal choice, it was a political choice. When they say that, you know that it's like, well, that's horseshit. At some level, it was a personal choice. You personally are in a role, and personally in that role, you chose to do that thing. Maybe, you know, when you're dropping off and you think, did I just choose to do this? You think, no, it was a political choice. I, the person behind that, had no choice. I had to do it. It was all to do with the role in which I've been put in. That's horseshit. If another choice is evident to anyone else, you could have taken that choice. And the reasons why you didn't are personal, not political. So there we go. But, you know, people want to see a political action as being made by a politician, being made by the role. But I don't think that's true. Ever. Ever. I don't think people act, you know, out of their roles. And unless, of course, the role is, I'm in this position and it's going to affect me, so I must act for the role. You know. The only time that you can tell that someone's acting out of a role instead of purely out of their own personal thing is when it's going to affect them and it's going to hurt them. When that happens, you can say, okay, you're personally choosing to put the role that you play ahead of the person that you are, because the person that you are is going to get, you know, flattened by what you've just done. But when it has no consequence to the person and they make an action and then say, oh, that wasn't me, that was my role, they're just a liar. Had no consequence to them personally. And that's the thing. The other thing is that they feel that it would have a bad consequence personally to make another choice. That's how they rationalise the fact that it wasn't them that made the choice. But it's like, well, there we go. So you chose to keep yourself safe instead of choosing to do the thing that maybe you should have done. I mean, if there is a choice, there's a choice that will keep you safe and a choice that will put you in harm's way, and you have the power to affect that choice merely because of the role you're in, and you choose to keep yourself safe. That's how you know it's a personal decision. And that's how it is. But what I'm more concerned with the people allowing those cop-outs. It was a political choice. We're looking at this as a political move. We're looking at this as a part of a machine, and they're changing the machine and it will have some sort of effect. And people go, but it's nonsense, because if you look at this way the system is set up, it'll actually have the opposite effect of the one they're reporting. They must be stupid. Maybe they are stupid. That is always a possibility. But what that means is that you, if rationally it doesn't make any sense to view it through the lens of their role, then there probably wasn't their role that was doing it. And that's exactly the point. Just because someone's a politician, you shouldn't view what they do always as the acts of a politician. Imagine how upset people in roles would get if, when they were put on the public eye, they were not treated as part of that role. In fact, they do, because through the chaotic lens of social media, there are a lot of people who for whatever reason don't really perceive the role. Maybe they don't understand the role, and so they just come straight at the person, and then that person gets upset and inveigles their way into being a friend of a powerful person, and then tries to dismantle the state because someone was mean to them once. That's not a political or role-based decision either. So what I'm saying is, assess people as people first, and then only question. The only time it makes sense to say that someone was acting out of whatever role they have within consensus reality is when that action makes no sense to them as a person. You say, well, why did they do that? It makes no sense to them as a person. But if a person's action is completely congruent with them as a person, keeping them safe, boosting them, making them look better, feeding their ego perhaps, whatever it is, then they're acting as a person. They're not acting within any structure. So you don't have to treat them as if they've acted within a structure. You treat them as if they're the arsehole that's done that thing, that kept them safe and may have chucked a bunch of other people under the bus. That's all it is. Their role, their responsibility, the inherited authority of their position no longer counts. They're just a person who did a shitty thing. So there we go. That's basically what I was kind of there. I guess if I'd have had hecklers, I could possibly have teased out the point a bit more. But as I said, I got a head cold. So, there we go. Stream of consciousness from a man with a head cold. Make of it what you will. Okay, well, I'm going to use canned art. I'm just going to stand up for a second. I'll be back in a second. Because there's no one here to cue. Therefore, I don't have to hay. So what I will do... it's not a reading book club or anything. I received this very book this week. Moon and Serpent Bumper Book of Magic by Alan Moore, Steve Moore. They're not related. Those of you who know who Alan Moore is, obviously you'll be like, interesting. It is very interesting so far. Even the first opening bit is. And part of the reason why I wanted this particular book, it was interesting, it was one of those moments of synchronicity, is it's a problem in Discordianism that we don't really have, a bunch of Discordian thinkers producing material all the time, stuff for us to get our teeth into, ways of shaping our world vision. And in fact, people who write Discordianismally may not even identify as Discordians, may see a problem with being Discordian, whatever it is. Yeah. What's really interesting about this book so far is that in the intro, I have to hold it a particular way because of the shiny letters. The Moon Serpent Bumper Book of Magic. It talks about sort of the formation or history of the idea of magic, and how, as history progressed, there's a certain part of that is devolved into this idea of magic as being a practice of altering material reality using non-material means. Yeah, but that there's also a branch where you can use non-material, non-material world of the mind, which is the home of magic, to receive messages from the mental universe. We'll talk about it again at some other point, but that's basically what it is. That jibes very closely with the SWDP, that is me, my philosophy of mysticism. Magic is not there for us to make a fireball that comes out of our hands, or to curse people, or to bless people, or whatever you want to do in the material world. It's not really there for that. I do not understand how that could work, and there are people who believe that they can understand how that works, and if that's what they want to do, then that's fine, and it doesn't stop them also being Discordians. But that practice of affecting the material world via that mechanism, I don't believe that's really inside the Discordian circle. But just by implication, the idea of receiving messages from that plane, mysticism as you will, that's exactly inside that Discordian circle. So, I'm hoping that reading the book will deepen my insight into that. So that's good. Better to have more. It's interesting because I would say, because we've got, Robert Anton Wilson. There's notes about things that Timothy Leary said, but he wasn't big on writing due to being off his absolute face on drugs. So that's a problem of extracting wisdom from that particular thing. Alan Moore, of course, he writes, he is a self-proclaimed magician in that sense, but not a self-proclaimed Discordian as far as I know. But that means there's a lot of crossover there. And then there's also a writer, Grant Morrison, who also does. They both do comic books, weirdly, and apparently they had beef. So it's weird because it's like then you feel like the sort of piggy in the middle. Not really, because I'm not really involved in whatever their beef is. But I think both of them have things to say and worldviews communicated that show us that mysticism that's very much in line with a Discordian practice, even though it technically isn't strictly. It's never described in any Discordian materials. Another problem: how do we integrate things that are evidently Discordian but are not officially Discordian? Oh, and then of course we've got the good old good old Historia Discordia as well. So yeah, Adam Go Rightly compiled this, so that counts, I think, as another great Discordian thinker. And of course the sort of personal history of Discordianism, Chasing Eris by Brenton Clutterbuck. Although I'm uncertain as to whether Brenton Clutterbuck was like, I'm a Discordian looking for other Discordians, or I'm a mad writer who's intrigued by Discordianism and wants to talk to people who are Discordian. I can't really draw. I have to ask him, and I can't. So, well, not directly. Whatever. We'll see. So there we go. Kanda. That was Kanda. So a few book recommendations, a couple of reading recommendations there. Faces of Eris. Oh, well, it's a shame the congregation didn't turn up. Once again, only twice. I mean, not really, I guess, because this one goes a different way. But then the last one went a different way as well. Once again, teaching the lesson, be careful what you wish for, because the results you get may manifest, but not in the way that you exactly desire. We had the heavy from Team Fortress 2, and the thing is that there were two paths, or no, actually not just two, several paths you could have taken. After I said, you do the notes, I'll try and deliver it in the spirit in which it's intended. Those notes were hurled into the world of generative AI, and so the heavy became a tool for showing the weird twists and turns of the algorithm of generative AI. There we are. That happened. And this week, once again, someone's getting what they wish for, but not maybe in the exact way that they thought they were going to. Oh, you probably haven't seen this. I'm just going to say this week's subtitle, Trolltastic. I am trolling 100% here, because the Face of Eris this week is everything except, and that icon there is supposed to be representing the jar of piss. I understand there's a jar of piss in Team Fortress 2, and that was the next target. Well, we didn't hit that target, but there we are. The congregation is in the house, and we are. But we're using this as a philosophical lesson that literally everything in the universe, my ring light, those books I just mentioned, the street light outside my house, all of those things. Eris is in all of those things this week. The only thing she's not in this week is the jar of piss from Team Fortress 2, which means that the verse is the inverse, right? Because if a set includes literally everything in the universe except one thing, which is more important, the thing that it is or the thing that it is not? I mean, the answer is pretty obvious. This is very much the old don't think of a purple polar bear moment, isn't it? Yeah, I'm telling you, there's one thing in the universe that the goddess is not in this. Am I a dishwasher? No. Okay, cool. I support your statement of not identifying as a dishwasher. TF2 Real Gamer 2022. Big hand there for the congregation coming in the house at exactly the right moment. But yeah, am I a dishwasher? I don't want... Well, okay, you're not a dishwasher. You're self-identifying as not a dishwasher. Which I guess is the same thing. Like, you could be a hat stand, or a guava fruit, or a raccoon. You could be any of those things. You're not a dishwasher. You would do anything for love, but you wouldn't be a dishwasher. And that's what we're saying. The set of exclusivity defines itself. Yeah? I mean, if I tell you to think of everything in the universe except the jar of piss from Team Fortress 2, ironically, you will probably only think of the jar of piss. You won't think of everything, because the commandment to think of everything in the whole universe is mentally stretching, shall we say. And so, despite the fact that I have trollishly set us to say we are considering everything except this thing, we find our brains trick us, and it makes us consider the thing that we've been told explicitly not to consider. It is a bit of a pointless rebellion, though, on both sides. Actually, my rebellion is the pointless one. I rebel against being told by the congregation to make the face of Eris a jar of piss from Team Fortress 2. But that rebellion is pointless, because all I've done is made everyone hyper-focused on that very same jar of piss. What was the point of my little troll exercise if I really didn't want people to think of that self-same vessel filled to the brim with urine? Of course, I don't care, in reality, whether you think about it or not. The point of this exercise is to consider both sides of this amusing paradox. The paradoxes that lie at the heart of our spiritual path. Always. What we have here is an example of hyper-persecution. It's ironically much easier, or it's a lot lighter. The more things you persecute, the greater your list of persecution, the weaker your ability to persecute becomes. But similarly, if you persecute just the one thing, if you single one thing in the entire universe out and say, I'm going to persecute that thing, you instantly lose all power over that thing. So it's better to have a persecution list of, I would say, 4 to 25 things. Then those things really know they're blooming persecuted, I can tell you. Too big a list, you just become a misanthropist. You hate everything. You may as well. Too small a list, it feels like you're making those things special, not persecuted. It tells people very clearly that very limited list of things live rent-free in your tiny little head. So there we go. Invert selection. Yeah, so essentially we could just as easily have made this slide this week. The face of Eris is a jar of piss that features in Team Fortress 2. We could have said that, and to be honest, that would have had less power than what we've done. Maybe something to think about if you're really hung up on a thing and your negative feelings towards that thing. Maybe that thing would possess less power over you if you invert that selection and you say, well, how do I appreciate that thing? As soon as you appreciate it, its power lessens. And so there we go. The multiplicity of negative conjuration. A bullet point I almost certainly wrote while this head cold was coming on. And so I now, in retrospect, do not understand what I meant by that. But maybe there's wisdom in it. That was true chaos slipping through my consciousness there. Negative conjuration. Oh yeah, that's right. Try to not conjure something, and then suddenly it's blinking everywhere. Yeah. Yeah. Bring it on yourself. The old Cassandra complex. There you go. So the goddess introduced herself in an amazing aspect this week, and will be remaining in that aspect until after I have proceeded to the half century. Okay. Unsurprisingly, at this stage, surprisingly, the service has gone on a while. Unsurprisingly, we have the reflective tarot now. Let's find out what it is. Let's, as it were, get this over with. I don't know what it is. You don't know what it is, but it's on this pasteboard here. Tarot, by the way, is also a recommended reading. I think it's an amazing Discordian tool. Obviously, we have a tarot card every week, so obviously I've got a lot of time for tarot. But of course, the tarot is a book, but it's a book that undermines books, because instead of having a set order, you are supposed to take books about the tarot tend to present the cards as a pageant that goes in a particular order, right? But the deck itself encourages you to shuffle those symbols up and then to pick one at random, or several at random. Like the only way to appreciate the teachings of the book is to mix up all the meanings within it, and to then to present them in a different way every time with new associations. That's where there's the sort of the permutations. So yeah, very much a book. So what page have we got from the book this week? What's the vibe? Vibe is this, which is the Six of Pentacles. Oh, okay. Six of Pentacles. So a minor league vibe this week. Pentacles, of course, being the suit of sort of, well, I always like to call it, I like to boil it down as long-term security. A lot of other people like to talk about career and coins, and so you see the coins, it's money, it's wealth, it's, you know, and all of these things, of course, feed into this idea of long-term security. And the six here, the six is sort of a number. Well, five, it follows on very heavily from five. I wonder if that's like the Fast and the Furious movies. Fast 5, Fast and Furious 6. Yeah, I would say that's the same sort of relationship. You see, Fast 5 was the first Fast and Furious movie that had Dwayne Johnson in it. And Fast 6 very much is just like, oh, that worked with Dwayne Johnson, let's do it again. So yeah, it's very much the same sort of thing. Fast 5, the 5 in a tarot deck represents an idea of considering the uses of going without, whatever it is. Yeah, there's a minor stability at 4, a sort of small ecosystem that goes with the vibe of the suit. But then you move on. Oh, wait a second. What am I doing? I should be on full. There you go. That's better. Good grief. Yeah. So that makes it easier for you to see the old Six of Pentacles that's going on here. So yeah. As I was saying, the 4 represents like a tiny ecosystem that has the vibe of whatever the suit is. And then the 5 says, imagine that you are outside that ecosystem looking in and sort of envying what that is. Yeah, very obvious in the 5 of Pentacles with the beggars going by the church window. Yeah, consider the uses of being out there, risking your own personal safety, being forced into that position, and seeing the possibility of, you know, seeing the church warm and safe inside. You're supposed to be protected. Also, there is this backslash. If the church is supposed to provide sanctuary, why are there beggars outside of it who are not being given sanctuary? Why is that? Maybe they're on the way to get it. But then 6 is that next thing, where that's the next evolution. That's where the vibe becomes systematized, where you try to deliver the vibe. You've taken the beggars, you've seen them outside of the church, and now here is a dude with scales providing coinage. This idea of like the comfort machine. It has come in a coinage way. The symbol is coinage and therefore money. But really all it is this idea of you wrapping your head around systems that will provide you with comfort. And the question, can you get a system that will provide you with long-term security and comfort? Or do you have to build it yourself? You know, it's all about that. You know, are you happy with the system? If you benefit from the system, does that show your potential? Or are you benefiting from the system because you feel you have no potential within that system? You can't make your own thing. You just have to take what you're given. So yeah, that's your 6th vibe this week. Considering why. If you're benefiting from a system, if you're receiving security and comfort from a very rigid structure, is that because you want to, or because you feel you have to? And is that all that you're worth? Obviously, in the realm of the mind, the best way to evolve that kind of comfort and structure would be for that to come from within. For it to not matter where you are, for you to feel yourself, you know, just integrated with that sense of safety and security. To always have a plan, maybe. So there we go. That was our reflective tarot for this week. And as I said, you know, we're not racing through it. We're not racing through this by any means. No. But I am sort of getting my hoof down. Eventually, I think I would pass into a delirious state. Start babbling. That might even be Discordianismly appropriate. But I'm not going to do that. I am instead going to do the sacrament. So obviously I have my sacramental candy noodles here. They've lasted a hell of a long time. It's probably because the people who manufacture this did not anticipate the idea that someone would literally eat one a week for however many weeks. If they knew about that, they'd probably sell them in blister packs that lasted precisely 3 months at 3 times the cost. But they don't, thankfully, so that's okay. So here is the sacramental noodle. You can have your own sacramental object, of course, as long as we recite the ritual incantation. I could not find a hot dog, not even with a bun. So I eat this insert name of substituted foodstuff here, because devotion comes with fun. Hail Eris. So as I said, we're going to keep it tight. I am flagging. I have got some water here. Very important when you have a cold. Wonder why my throat was getting so sore. But it does often get dry. But it doesn't often get dry and sore. There we go. That's better. That'll keep me going for the next minute or so while I wrap this shindig up. Wonderful. Yeah, so I've done a lot of rambling in this service. But then again, you know, the pastor turned up, shared his rambling imaginings. At one point, someone burst into the church, the e-chapel, declared that they were not a dishwasher. And that was very dramatic. So that was good. But other than that, it's been fairly straightforward. And sometimes, isn't that all you want out of a ritual? I mean, you want to wonder, is that true for Satanists as well? You know, do you do any Satanists in the audience? Do you organise a ritual and then think, oh God, I really am not in the mood for this ritual tonight. Let's just get it over with. I can see that. It's the human experience to suddenly just not be in the mood for whatever it is that you've undertaken to do. And it's not that I'm not in the mood. I'm not just like, oh, I have a vibe where I don't want to do this. It's that I actually have a mild illness. So there we go. as I repeated, just to repeat, on the way out of the door next week, there will be a vastly truncated. You know, we've gone nearly 40 minutes. That's nearly a full service tonight. Next week will not be so leisurely. No, we will be in, we will be out. There will be a sacrament. It's pretty much all there will be. Also, we will have, by that time, encroached upon the month that the normies call April. I don't know what that month is called yet. We have been stuck, as I said, for months now in this circumstance where we have the Friday right at the end of one month, and you don't find out what the new month is until it's nearly a weekend. But there we go, 4th of April, you will find out what April is in the SWDP timescape. But for now, enjoy your Discord week, and I shall see you briefly next Friday. And now, there's an interesting thing. The following week, I will be catching up with a friend and spiritual advisor at this time. Maybe we'll do a service together. What I will do is I will provide the sacramental Friday service before my friend arrives. And if my friend is here and he decides that he would like to join us, and we have like a sort of a different type of a service, that'll happen. And if it doesn't, it won't. But at least you'll have done the weekly sacrament. Yeah, so that'll be fine. What am I thinking? What about the week after that? Are we gonna? Well, of course, the week after that I think is Good Friday, the Easter celebration of Good Friday. So that'll be fine. The week after that we will have our Saints' Day, which I shall probably mention in one of these upcoming services. Probably the Good Friday service would be a good one, right? And then we'll have a normal Friday service. God, it'll be weeks before we get into that. And then we'll be getting into May. So April is going to be weird. But that's good, because we like weird here at the SWDP and in the Discordian faith as a whole. So I hope you enjoyed the last properly regular service that you're going to have for a while. Let's get on. It's going to be a bumpy ride.